Decentralize all the things. Decentralize all the things.
Hey there! Welcome to the Web3 Summit Decentralize Now podcast series, hosted by the Decentralize All The Things podcast network. This series features discussions about decentralization from the 2018 Web3 Summit held in Berlin, Germany. This is episode 7, featuring Luis Cuende of Aragon. In this episode, Luis gives an overview of Aragon and how you can use it to deploy your very own DAO, or Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
So, let's deploy a few DAOs today. First things first, you go to app.aragon.org, app.aragon.org, simple URL, and this will take you to this aragonpm.com URL, which is like a bridge that uses the Aragon package manager. So everything that you see here is being loaded from IPFS by checking the latest package in our package manager on the Rinkeby network. So please set your Ethereum provider to Rinkeby. If you use MetaMask, you can just go to MetaMask and set it here. And you're going to have some Rinkeby ETH. If you don't have, I think you can send me your address to in aragon.chat. Like just here. So if you go to the Aragon chat, you can just go to a channel such as General and just be like, hey, I want some ETH for testing purposes. And I will be checking here and sending you guys in Rinkeby ETH. Is there anyone who wants to create a DAO who doesn't have Rinkeby ETH? Rinkeby ETH, everyone? Okay, wow. There's a really crypto crowd here. Okay, cool. So then I'll just go to the app itself because I was into a DAO, so I'm now getting outside the DAO and just creating a new one. This is the first screen you see when you're trying to create a DAO. It tells you here a small message about some old organizations being deprecated because the version you're going to try here is going to be Aragon 0.6, which is still unreleased. So it's very bleeding edge software. And here, basically, what you want to do is create an organization. So you just have to click there. I'm going to put things a bit bigger so you can see the text. Create a new organization. So we click there, and then we arrive to this screen. And this screen is basically which template do you want to use to create a DAO. So currently, there are 2 templates. And the templates means that the DAO is pre-configured with some settings. So you have democracy or you have multi-sig. And the difference is that with democracy, you have everything set up in a way that is with voting, and you can give tokens to random people who can then vote, or not random people, people that you like to be inside your democracy. Or you can do multi-sig, which is the classical kind of multi-sig approach. But we all really like democracy, so we'll go the democracy route and just deploy a new democracy. So you select it. Here in the future, there will be a lot of templates, even an store for an app store for templates. So you can have I want to create a DAICO, or I want to create a simple dictatorship, or I want to create Delaware LLC, which apart from setting up these smart contracts, set up a legal entity in that place, for example. So you can have a lot of these things, and you can actually create templates if you are a developer, and they are very easy to create. So if you go to token project with democracy and then you click next, you have to choose an ENS name. So this ENS name is a human readable name that or username that your DAO has. So I'm just going to call it Decentralize Now .aragonid.eth, and then you just click next. And then you have to configure how your DAO works. And so with this template, with this democracy template, there are 3 parameters we need to configure here, which are basically parameters regarding the voting. So these parameters here, they basically express when a voting passes. So support means the amount of support that is required for a voting to pass. So for example, if it's 50%, that means that more than 50% have to vote on yes for this to pass. And then you have the minimum quorum. So we're going to set this one for 50%, the support, because, just half of it. and then the quorum. And the quorum is like the amount of token holders that will have to vote. So, for example, if we get support to 50% and the quorum to 10%, that would mean that minimum 10% of people have to vote. And out of those like 10% people who vote, you need 50%, so 5% people, to vote yes for it to pass. 10% of tokens, because here we are not like, use like token-based kind of thing.
And the support is only on ones that have voted. Like that percentage? Like they have voted, so 50% have to support it. And then if they say no, it's only from that small amount.
Exactly. Thanks. Yeah. Cool. And then the vote duration, which is 24 hours, a week, a month, whatever you want it to be. So let's set it for 24 hours. Although it's going to get approved earlier because we are going to vote yes to everything, and so it's going to pass as soon as we reach these like 2 numbers there of support and quorum. So then we click next. And then we get to name our token because this template creates a token for us. So this token is, in this case, we're going to just call it like the Decentralize Now token. And the symbol is going to be, I guess, like DEC. It can even be like DEC now because like there is no limit. Well, there is a limit actually. So use DEC. So now we click next and that's it. We just have to sign transactions and it's done. So we just confirm. Well, actually I think I had some leftover transactions from before, so I will just confirm everything. But this should just trigger 1 transaction at a time. Because I was creating DAOs before, so I have a lot of DAOs created. And so basically creating all of these takes a couple transactions. So we'll wait for the first one to get verified, and then we'll go to the second one. So now we just wait. And, just like pray to the Rinkeby gods to be fast so they can process our transactions. And, okay, one of them got confirmed. Another one, I had a lot of transactions that were left over, so we'll just wait for like another 14 seconds or so. And after this, it's done. Like after this, we'll have a fully deployed DAO on Rinkeby. You will be able to deploy DAOs on mainnet very soon, and I'm talking days from now, finally. So I don't want to give any date, but it's days away. The dev team is working 24 hours to like get it done. Then we will jump into like multiple apps that this template has set for us. But I will go into it a little bit now in the meantime as things confirm. This template has 3 different apps. So one of them is Token Manager. And Token Manager basically allows you to give tokens to people very easily via a user interface. And also you have the Finance app. And this Finance app lets the DAO have some assets that are owned by the DAO. And so there we go. Okay, it's ready. So now we just click Get Started. And it's done. So as you see here, all the apps have loaded in the left. So you have a Token Manager, you have a voting app, and you have a Finance app. So we will just go one by one. And you can do some like actions here that are like very like useful actions, you like shortcuts kind of thing. So we are going to go and assign tokens, for example. So no one has tokens right now. As you can see here is the Decentralize Now token. So I'm going to give some tokens to myself because I like tokens. So right now I'm just going to give tokens to myself, but I could like give tokens to you guys. I'm going to see if someone requested. You can also like send some addresses there, and I can include you in my DAO if you want. It's a very nice DAO. I recommend it. So number of tokens, we are going to be like use 1 token for me, for example, to see how this works. And so right now, if I click assign tokens, what's going to happen is that I will have to go through some like governance process. And in this case, how the DAO is configured is that to create a DAO, to create a token and to give that token to someone, I need to go through voting. And so here, what Aragon is telling me is, hey, you don't have permission to actually mint the token because you are just like a user and you don't have permission to do that. But there is another app inside the DAO, which is the voting app, which has permission to create a token. So why don't you forward your intent of creating a token to the voting app, so if the voting passes, the voting app can mint that token for you. And that's what we're going to do. We are going to go through the voting app to mint the token. So we just we just click create transaction here. And by the way, as you see here, it's very user-friendly. It tells you what you are going to do. It tells you you are going to create a vote. So you click here. and then you confirm a transaction, and then you wait again. As you see in this app, like it is a very easy way to see the tokens, and so I could think of this as like transparency for like, well, there we go. I have 2 tokens now, as you see here. And so if you create a DAO and you are like, the founders and you want to include more people, people in your community can just go here and see how many tokens you have. And in the future, we are working towards implementing identity systems. So instead of having this like very clunky address, you would have like luis.aragonid.eth. And it would be a beautiful way to see how many tokens each person has. And I think this will be beautiful for projects in the crypto space to implement, because you can like clearly go here and like see here in this graph, which I mean, of course, like right now, 100% of tokens are owned by me, but I could basically like see here what is token distribution, how it looks like. And I could be like, no, that's too centralized for me. I want to get away from that. Or I could be like, nice token distribution. I want to participate. And so here you can assign tokens or remove tokens. If you remove tokens, we can say, for example, we want to burn 1 token, and that also has to go through some like permission. In this case, like no one can burn tokens, so no one can take those away from you, because that's how the DAO is set to behave. So we cannot do that right now. We see here the supply, if they are transferable or not, because you can also have tokens that are non-transferable. Question?
Can they burn their own tokens?
Well, yeah. The question was if they can burn their own tokens, and the answer is if you own a token, you can burn it, because you can just send it like to 0000. But the idea here is that if you don't like someone in your community, you can set up your DAO in a way that the community can kick that person out, or like kick that token holder out, which I think is great, because sometimes you have the issue of like governance problems in which you have someone voting against the will of the whole community, or just like doing something that the community doesn't like. And in a blockchain, you hard fork them, but here you cannot hard fork. So what you can do is you can just like remove them from the community. So let's go to the voting app. So in the voting app, we have all the votings that happen in the DAO. So here, for example, we have the vote to mint 1 token for myself, and we can see here the results. And so basically, everyone voted, because there is just 1 person which has tokens to vote right now. And there was full consensus, of course. And here you can see the token, like 1 decentralized now token voted in favor of the proposal. And here you can see the human readable description of what this vote actually did. So it was minting 1 token. And we can also create polls. So we can say, shall we donate 1 ETH to someone? For example, Carlos Matos. He may need it. And you can just click begin vote, and you can just open kind of a poll. And these polls don't have any binding like process, because this one here, this was binding. Like you create a token, you mint a token if the voting passes. So that's binding. But if you do like use a poll and you ask people what they think about something, that's just like informative. It doesn't have any binding implications. So here you can vote yes or no. I already voted yes because I created the proposal. And it's a very easy way to poll your stakeholders. Now we have finance. And finance, it's a very simple app. We are going to request some Ring-KB tokens. So we have some tokens to play with in finance. But it's a very simple app. It lets you see the tokens that the DAO has. It may have some like Ring-KB, BitConnect, or Spank. Oh, we have some mana. Nice. So we have some mana here, and we can transact with it. So, for example, I'm gonna send myself some mana. So that's me, and then I can create a new transfer. I can say I want to send myself 1 mana, and I'm gonna do it to buy land, because I want to create a decentralized gym on Decentraland. And so I submit the transfer. And again, we have to go through a process. And so the process right now is going to be to create a voting, because this is a democracy DAO. Don't forget about that. It's democratic. And so you create transaction, and then you confirm it. And then you will go through a voting. And people could vote, could say, I don't like this because I don't think this DAO should invest in Decentraland land, or it shouldn't invest in like gyms or decentralized gyms or whatever. And so here we go. That's it. That's the voting. It was approved. And so now we have, the DAO doesn't have the mana it has. It has used 140 instead of 141. And you can see here, it was used to buy land. And you can view transaction in Etherscan too if you want more context, although I think this view is pretty amazing and it's beautiful. So with this app, like everything DAO has, like every single money or token movement is there forever. And you can just be like, hey, token holders, go to this address here and you can see how this works. Because I was talking about decentralization and transparency, like right now, if you go to like our transparency portal, you can see that we had to build this from scratch, and also we have to like document this manually, and it's kind of centralized. So we can be, we can be saying here that we're paying lawyers, but then the transaction is to buy a Lambo or whatever. Which of course we are not trying to do that because we are not into buying Lambos. But if we were malicious, we could do that. And so with the finance app, you don't have that anymore because what you see there, that description, is a description that goes to the voting app. And so if people vote on something, you cannot just spend the funds on something else. It's a binding decision on the blockchain. So this is great, but what if you want to customize things a little bit? What if you don't want to use like a democracy? You want to have something more complex, more granular? Then you can go to the permissions app. Because all of these apps that you saw in the left, Token Manager, Voting Finance, those are what we could call third-party apps. Like there is not concept of first-party and third-party apps inside Aragon. They are all just apps, and you can create your own. And so if you are like, I don't like the voting app, I would like a Footarchy app, you can go and create a Footarchy app, and then you can basically swap them out. Or you can even create like multiple instances of one app. So I can say, okay, I have this voting app here, which requires 50% support over like a day. But I want to create another instance of the voting app, which just requires 5% support over like 30 minutes vote. So it's like a quick vote, quick decision kind of thing. Or I can create multiple token managers, and I can be like, I want to give some tokens to my community multisig or my community committee or my technical council, and I want to give a lot of tokens to my like broad community too. And I want to give them different permissions on how the governance works. Or I want to have like a multi-cameral system in which the community has a vote, and then as the community has a vote, there is like a committee who like approves or ratifies that vote. So you can build really complex systems very easily with this UI here. So, for example, Token Manager. The Token Manager can mint tokens. That's one action that the Token Manager has in itself, in its smart contracts. It can assign tokens, it can revoke vesting, and it can burn tokens. And so here, for example, no one can burn tokens. But, we don't want that to happen. We want to actually be able to burn tokens because, we just like that to happen. And so I'm going to say that the permission manager should be the voting app. And what this means is that permissions work like this. You have apps that expose functionality. For example, Token Manager can mint tokens. And then you have another app or entity that can manage those permissions. And so what that means is the voting app is the one that can change permissions on the Token Manager, for example. So there is no centralized admin, so to say. You can configure it in a way that only the voting app can change how permissions work on, for example, the Token Manager. And also, it is not only apps that can perform actions on the Token Manager and mint tokens. The Token Manager can also perform some actions on some other apps. And so, for example, here, we see that actually, Token Manager doesn't have any permissions. So that's a bad example. But if you go to voting, we see that the voting app can actually assign tokens, can execute payments on the finance app, and can do a lot of these things. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to enable something that right now couldn't be done with this DAO, which is burning tokens. So let's go there. Let's get the address for the voting app first. So the addresses for all the apps are here. The finance app, Token Manager, voting. So let's copy the address. And we can go to permissions. And then we can just say we want to initialize this permission, which is burning tokens in a Token Manager. We want the voting app to be the one that can manage this permission. So basically, the voting app will be able to change how the permissions on the Token Manager work. It's like very human readable. If you think about it, it's like, I want to enable that in this app, Token Manager, there is an action that is burn tokens, and I want that address to manage that, and I want this other entity to be able to basically burn tokens on the token manager. So, for example, as we are like a democratic organization, we are going to enable voting to do that. So then, as you see here, if we do this, voting is going to be able to burn tokens on the token manager. So we click Initialize Permission. It's a democratic organization, so we have to create a vote for that to happen. So we click Create Transaction, and we sign it again. Then we just have to wait again. I want to add that we are working on optimistic UI patterns because, as you see here, the user interface is really straightforward. But there are a couple of things that are still lacking. One of them is obviously like don't having to rely on all of these like super complex hex addresses. And part of that is, as you see here, you don't see any hex address here. You see like voting, like you see an actual app that is easy for user to identify. And second one is optimistic UI. Like when you perform an action, you should see something happening in the screen, even if the transaction is not necessarily confirmed yet. Anyway, like as you see here, the UI updated. So now burning tokens can be done by the voting app. So let's try that out. I'm going to burn some of my tokens, which I could do anyway, but like if I was just like, if we had like 1,000 token holders here, anyone would be able to do this. And so we click here, remove tokens. This is like very experimental, so I hope it works. Yay, it worked. So before we couldn't do this, and now we can do this. So create transaction, we sign it again, and I'm going to burn one of my tokens. Of course, with DAOs, you have to be careful, because if I burn 2 of my tokens, then I'm basically kicking myself out from the DAO, and I can't do anything anymore. So you got to be careful about these things. And this is, yeah, okay, something happened here. Well, I hope I have a token still. I think I have a token because total supply is 1. So I think I just didn't kick me out from my own DAO. I really hope. But we can just perform like a random action to see if that happened. But let's keep like tweaking stuff in the permissions app. So, for example, right now, finance, you have to go through a voting. But, you know, maybe I just want myself to be able to create payments because, you know, I wanna spend money very quick. So I'm going to copy my own address here. And instead of like creating new payments via the voting app, I'm going to say I want to change the permission manager. Well, actually, I think we could do it probably here, down here. Well, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to change the permission manager. And I want to be able to basically change the permissions for creating new payments myself because I want to turn this beautiful democracy into a dictatorship. And so I have to go through voting because that's how the DAO works. Although if this voting passes, then I will not have to go through voting to do this again. And so voting should appear. As you see here, since I just have like 1 token, all this stuff is happening automatically, but there is a voting for each action that I was performing. And also here you can see this is a little bit not very user-friendly yet, but you see here that in the access control list, we just set someone as the manager of like some permission. So if we go to the permissions app and we go to the finance app, create new payments, now it's not the voting app. Now it's me who can manage that permission, basically. For example, I'm going to try to give myself permission to create new payments. So apart from actually owning the permission itself and being able to like basically grant permission to other people and say, I want my friend to be able to withdraw funds, I'm going to grant permission for myself to withdraw funds. So create transaction. As you see here, as I'm the permission manager now because we just approved that, I don't need to go through voting. I just, create transaction, sign it, and then I'm the king of this finance app. So we will just have to wait until this happens. And we will here it is. So apart from the voting app who can create new payments, I can also create new payments. So let's go try it out. New transfer. I'm going to send myself some money from this DAO because I just took it over. And I'm going to say buy Lambo, not Lambi, XD, and submit transfer. And here you go. I don't have to go through a voting again. I just can do it because I'm the dictator now. I just took over. And I confirm. And then we wait again. And here we go. I have some mana for buying a Lambo because I'm a dictator. Cool. So, and we can tweak permissions. We can also revoke permissions. So I can say, I don't want any other voting app to be here. I want to change my voting app to be like a footarchy app. And then you can revoke all the permissions for the voting app. And you can set up the footarchy app as like the new app that controls how things work in your DAO. And this is very granular, as you have seen. Like basically any app, you can take it out of the system, put another one. And right now, you cannot create multiple instances of one app using the UI. In the future, we will have an app center like this, and you will be able to just say, I want to deploy this app here, which enables me to have bounties inside Aragon. Or I want to deploy the payroll app, which, by the way, is a very cool app, which lets you basically give salary to people, and that people can get their salary by the block. So each block, they can say, I want to get 1 ETH, or 30% of my salary in ETH, 30% in ANT, 30% in DAI, stuff like that. And you can deploy multiple instances using this UI. But right now, you cannot do that. You have to go through the command line, or use templates, as the one we did. Or go to settings and then just configure everything from, permissions, and configure everything from permissions. Finally, I think to wrap up the demo, I'm going to include other account, because it's just kind of boring to have myself doing everything from a single account. So I'm just gonna copy this address here, and I'm gonna try to assign some tokens to that address. So here we go. So I'm going to give 1 token to this other address I have on MetaMask. So instead of being a dictator, we will have 1 token each. So I can confirm a transaction. And then we wait again. Oh, there we go. That was fast. So now I have other account, which in this case it's me, but it could be other person. And as we see here, the stakes have been updated 50-50 now. And if we open a voting, it shouldn't pass automatically. It should actually be there until both accounts vote. But I want to completely relinquish my governance power with this account. So I'm gonna give this new account another token. And so if I give this account another token, what's gonna happen is that this other account is gonna have 2 tokens, and I'm gonna have used 1. So I won't be the dictator anymore. And I think this kind of stuff is very cool because you can decentralize projects very easily. You can go from centralized to decentralized very easily. So here we go. Now I just have 33%, and the other account has 67%. So now if I want to assign another token, I won't be able to do that automatically. I will have to go through voting because I don't own more than 50% of the tokens. So now we can go to the voting app. And so, for example, this is the last voting that passed, but this one is not going to pass because there is not enough support. Basically, we need more people to vote yes, because I just have 33% of the tokens. There is actually, we should improve the UI a little bit. It's hard to explain people how support and quorum works in a human readable way. But basically, I have to change account to my other account, which I think it was this one here. And then it can go to view vote, and I can scroll down and I can be yes or no. I'm just going to vote no for once with my 2 tokens. So this voting shouldn't go through. It should just be a negative outcome for the voting. And so the tokens shouldn't be minted at all. Yeah, it is rejected. So we see here, there wasn't enough support for this to pass, so it's a nope. And you can customize things as you want. You can basically have multiple voting apps. I think it's very great that you can create smaller groups with the token manager. So for example, you can create another token manager with another token that is called Technical Council and give a small group of people some power over upgrades for your DApp, for example. And then over time, slowly decentralize that, airdrop some tokens to more developers in your community until you get to 1,000 token holders here, and then it's fully decentralized. And all of these, the cool thing is all the front end you see here is upgradable by using our own package manager that is itself on Ethereum. And actually, you can set permissions on how all of that works. So if you go to the kernel right now, you want to install more apps, it has to go through voting. So basically, you can extend the DAO and you can upgrade the DAO over time, both the smart contracts and front end, in a purely decentralized and democratic way. Because I don't believe that we should have apps that are decentralized in surface, but then they are centralized behind the scenes. I think they should be decentralized from the ground up. And so when you create these kind of things, the DAO itself can be upgradable by its own like stakeholders. And then finally, what else is there here? Well, there's like a settings tab with like some boring stuff, the organization address, and like some other stuff, the nodes that you want to connect to. But the interesting part happens here. And the interesting part is in the future, you will be able to install more apps. I will just go over some of them. The payroll app, I was talking about it before, very flexible, automatic payroll for your employees. And you can use the permission system to have like a manager, which can be like the CEO kind of thing, which can like update salaries, or you can have like, even you could have like votings to upgrade salaries. So the whole like company or like stakeholders have to vote for raising a salary or lowering it down. You can have stuff like Espresso. They are working on a fully decentralized collaborative data vault. So you have all your storage encrypted, and just like you have finance, voting, token manager, you will have a data or like a drive app there, and you will be able to click and share files with people, and even use this permission system to give people access to read or write them. It's a fully decentralized alternative to Dropbox that will be very easy to use. And then finally, you have stuff such as the DAO planning tab. They are working on a whole collaborative suite for collaboration. So basically, you can have people who go and get money from completing some tasks in a very transparent way. And the cool thing is you can plug and play these apps, as you have seen. Like basically, if you want to implement an app, you don't have to care about governance because you can just use the voting app. You can just say, hey, my app exposes the permission to, for example, mint new tokens. And then you don't have to care about governance because people in the DAO can say, hey, okay, I want this functionality to be covered by a voting, or I want it to be covered by a council, or I want it to be covered by just like an address. So it's a very flexible system that you can use, and you can plug and play apps just like you can play and play with like Lego bricks. It is very flexible and modular. And so this app, I think that planning tab is one of the most interesting because it's a complete suite for like bounties. It has also like range voting, so you can vote like I feel 50% good about this option and 50% good about this other one, but 0% about the other ones. So you can have like very flexible and granular voting. So I think this is the future of how people are going to collaborate, and it's so easy. Like when we talk about Ethereum and we talk about crypto, it's hard, it's not sexy. This is easy, and this is very sexy. It's cool to use. Like, you have to wait 14 seconds for things to happen. That's the only thing we have to work on. That and like more human readable stuff, so you don't have weird 0x stuff in here. But everything else, like it's so simple, and I believe we should make it simple for people to participate in governance. You go there, you click yes or no, as you have seen, you confirm, it happens, boom, it's there. So I think that was a little bit of an overview of how to create DAOs. I don't know if we should cover anything else. You guys have any questions? You guys want to play a little bit with another stuff?
Thank you for the presentation. So 2 questions. First one about voting. Can you delegate other people to vote on your behalf, or do everybody needs to vote on the outcome directly?
That's a very good question. So right now, you need to vote. Like you basically need to create a transaction with your to send a transaction with your private key and broadcast it. With the private key that represents the address that has the token. And the problem with that is you couldn't delegate that very easily. So there is people working on a liquid democracy implementation. And when that happens, you will be able to do that perfectly. Right now, the most thing you could do to delegate votes is like a pre-signed transaction and give it to someone else to broadcast. That's the closest you got. But yeah, liquid democracy, it's on its way.
All right. And the second question, are you looking into second layers, layer 2 scaling solutions for working through some of the stuff with latency and transaction costs and like all these bottlenecks? Is it feasible? Have you looked into it?
Yeah. Have some water. So do that. I think right now, like voting, as I said, is like on-chain, and that's a huge bottleneck if you want to have thousands of people voting. So even if it's very like gas optimized, and this system seems like very complex, but in the end, it's not like that overhead. Like basically, everything you see here of like permissions and like transaction pathing with like the voting app or like different paths that you can forward your intent. It's just like a 50K baseline, like 50K gas baseline cost plus whatever the call takes. So it's not that expensive, but yeah, we're looking into that. Basically, we're looking into stuff like, just signing transactions and then having some node on some entity that is economically incentivized to gather all those signed transactions and settle them all at once to the voting app, stuff like that. I don't think right now, the one we have is like a plain voting app in which like every single vote is a transaction, but I think that's not going to scale in the long term. So we're looking into that, yeah.
Is there options for adding in more than yes and no for the voting? Like if I wanted to add an abstain option to allow the quorum to happen, but still.
Yeah, that's something that these guys are working on with like the range voting. So we'll be able to vote on like 3 outcomes. You will be able to say, I would like outcome 1 to happen 50%, and the 2 last outcomes 21 each, for example. There is also some other app that we have, which is called the Survey app, which we are using internally for gathering opinions from our token holders and community. And in the future, we will use it to basically transition governance to our community. And so this app is running on mainnet, so we'll have to switch this. And so for this one, you can have any like unlimited number of options. So let's say if the network works. Oh well, not collaborating. You can just go to survey.aragon.org, and it has exactly that functionality today. So yeah.
First question is the apps that are being developed and funded through proposals, and what kind of integration, if any, exists between them? For example, if voting, let's say we want to decide whether to pay a group of people on a recurring basis, right? Or maybe there is way more complex relationships, maybe they're dynamically changing, like will there be any kind of integration between them, and what would be the interface for a developer to add this as a extension or something?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is like stuff that the one you were talking about, just for example, having like different payments that are like dynamic over time. You could do this. Right now, there is not an interface to create like recurring transfers, but we have it on the pipeline. So here you will have like a recurring toggle, and you will be able to basically say, I want this transaction to happen in a recurring basis. Another great point is if you want to create your own apps, you can just go to the developer portal. And it is very easy to create an app. Like basically, I can run it here. It's like super easy. You go to like, I don't know, like I'm just going to create like a temporary directory, and you do, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, I'll just do Aragon init, and then I'll call it deck with like the one template, for example, React template, or just without it. Let me try if I can actually. Okay, here we go. And this will set it up, everything for you. You will basically create like a scaffolding for your app with all the different stuff and like React based boilerplate that you need. It will do npm install, which takes centuries, as you guys know. So we'll probably just go to like one that is already initialized. Okay, what do we have here? I have some that I prepared for my talk at ETH Summit. And you just do Aragon run, and it does all the like hard stuff for you. It like initializes like a local IPFS node and a local chain, deploys all your smart contracts and front end to a decentralized package manager that is also running locally and deployed locally. Deploys an ENS registry, builds your front end, like publishes the files into IPFS. That's all the stuff, so you don't have to do that. And then opens like a beautiful like Aragon UI that is running locally with your app in it. And so it is very, very easy.
And the second question, is there any plans, or is there anyone working or interested in working on integrating like a generalized TCR, for example, for elect members of the board or management team? And is there anyone who's working on this? Would love to collaborate around that one.
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, we have someone in our team who has been working on the first modular TCR implementation following this kind of system that we have here, which is, as you can see, very modular. And because we are very against monoliths, we believe things to be modular and upgradable for security, and also because we don't know how the systems will evolve. And so someone in our team has clearly been working on the smart contracts for this modular TCR implementation. We don't have a UI yet, though. And I think it would be amazing if someone works on making an amazing modular UI for TCRs. So, but yeah, you can actually, I think the repo is somewhere in the Aragon Labs organization. But yeah, if there's anyone interested in like knowing more about like TCR implementations, I think that will be, yeah. So you have here like the registry app, like a simple curation app, a staking app. You have like different components that you can check out and use to build a TCR, but we don't have everything in a cohesive UI yet. And that will be amazing. So if anyone wants to take that.
What would you say are like the biggest obstacles to, I guess, mainstream adoption and for like mainstream adoption and running these DAOs?
Well, I think it's user experience and communication. So we have to communicate that these things are great, not only for ideological purposes, but also like for practical ones. And when people see that they can organize and they can create like entities, and they don't even have to go through like a company registry and like 1,000 different paperwork and bureaucracy, they will be like, yeah, I can use this. And then when they come to use us, we have to be careful about the UX. It has to be simple. And so I think we are not there yet. I mean, this is a great improvement to how things were a year ago. But still, I think we should get rid of like all the like weird hex addresses. And secondly, we should get some optimistic UI, because users shouldn't care about the block time for any given blockchain. They should just be like, oh, I created a new voting and it's there. Nice. So I think those are the two main like blockers. And then also we have to improve this like the Ethereum provider situation. Like they are not beautiful, they are a bit clunky, and they rely on a lot of like, you know, not human readable stuff. So it's really improve that experience too.
Hi, Luis. I was thinking, is it possible when you want to run a voting, for example, about a communication plan of any other of a business function, not only reviewing of code, because I'm thinking in open source business models with social impact, can you upload information and have some interaction to people to defend their proposals? Now? It's ready? It's not? Okay.
No, I was just nodding because I think that's so important, but we don't have that yet. I think how I see that is you could implement an amazing discussion app that it just sits like in top of voting, for example. And so this discussion app could be kind of a forum. And in each proposal, like you have like a forum thread that is decentralized on IPFS. And then you have on the right, like the live stats of how the vote is going. And so you can discuss the vote and you can see how it's going. And then after you have like read it, you can go and you can actually go and vote for whatever you feel like. And I think you can do a lot of stuff with like skin in the game, such as, for example, you know, if you participate into a discussion, you have to stake some tokens to participate there. And then people in the discussion can like vote you out or slash you out. And then depending on how the voting goes, you can also incentivize people to do one thing or another. I think that would be amazing. Just to have like a, yeah. Okay. That would be perfect. I would love that to happen. Perfect. We want to build that, or like someone to build it. It's an amazing tool that should exist.
Hello. Speaking of additional tools, do you have a backlog of the other apps that you guys would like to see, like an open call to the community for what to build on top?
Well, I'll just go to our grants program, which is in GitHub, and see where the open GitHub issues. But there are definitely a few that we need built. So one of them is like a TCR implementation that is modular. Then we need a Futarchy app, would be amazing. We need fundraising too. Like we need an easy way for people to fundraise inside their DAOs. Like a fundraising app would be so easy to build with this. Where was it? Yeah, with this sort of like apps that you can reuse, because you can have the finance app and you can have the voting app, and then you can have like a basic fundraising app which displays the user with an address to send money to, and then maybe once you want to spend the funds, you have to go through a voting, for example. And all the funds can eventually go to the finance app for them to be administered in a transparent way. I think fundraising is important. Then you have stuff like identity is very important right now, so you don't have to deal with weird hex addresses. You can just be like, I want to send money to luis.aragonid.eth. What else? Discussion tools. We have actually like this proposal here for a grant of like the discussion tools we were talking about. What else there is? More voting apps that are anonymous and work with CK snark, for example, or ring signatures. What else? Well, just like Drive apps, like the one I was describing for like having a Dropbox or a Google Drive-like experience with a DAO. which is this one. And what else? Well, also there is a project called Pando that is building like a decentralized Git, and so you can have a repo on that is controlled by your DAO, and using the permissions app, you can say, I want this guy to be the maintainer, and I want this girl to be like the one that can merge PRs, and so you can reward them and stuff like that. And they have built an amazing command line tool for that, but we don't have a front end yet. And with all the news of like GitHub being acquired by Microsoft, I think we should hurry on doing like a fully decentralized GitHub alternative.
So those issues we saw in the the nest on GitHub, are those internal or are these public? Okay, public.
Yeah, our whole grants program is running in the public, so you can actually go here and see who applied and follow the whole discussion. Like even like negotiations and stuff like that, you can go to I don't know. Like actually we have Tenagraph here, which was approved like last week. And you can just check it out and see how it went and like all the questions, all the application, Maria's comments, which I think are, here, like Maria's questions, their replies, all the process. You can really, everything is here. It's transparent. Any more questions?
This is potentially a silly question. Have you guys thought about migrating any existing organizations that would be feasible over to Aragon and using that as a litmus or just, I don't know, as an intellectual exercise?
So you mean like existing companies or existing like organizations? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're definitely thinking about that. It's hard because when you have a fresh start, you are like digital native and like blockchain native. But when you have all of this like legacy stuff, it's hard to migrate because you have to like involve lawyers and be careful. We are doing that ourselves. Like we have a legal entity because we couldn't create a DAO because DAOs didn't exist back in the day. So we have a legal entity and we are trying to migrate that to a DAO with all the funds that we have raised and everything. And it's a nice thought exercise. It takes a lot of time because you have to deal with lawyers and it's hard to explain them. We just want to send money to like 0x, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and that will be a DAO. That will not be anyone that can sign a contract. But it's definitely an interesting thought exercise. And we want to open source a lot of the legal docs that we are doing so people can just grab it and, use Aragon, grab the legal docs, sign them, and transition their legal entity to a DAO.
So one issue that we, in my team that we're dealing with, for example, with custody of funds, and let's say if we're using Gnosis multi-sig wallet, right? One issue that we found that's kind of defeats the purpose is that, well, you can receive and send out the funds, but it's hard to, let's say, liquidate or convert into fiat through something like wire, right? And it still has to go through very often like through a single signature interface with MetaMask Ledger, right? It's basically a request, like a wish that if someone could work on more like real world usage of let's say finance app. I think a lot of projects would use it for basic like treasury needs on an ongoing basis, as long as it would solve these issues like, okay, if we want to sell it, right, how do we get money from a multi-sig into like a decentralized exchange, right? To wrap Ether, for example, that's one kind of a very practical thing that would get usage because it's a problem that is not solved. And the second comment about the real world migration, like something that we could certainly use, would be a simple arbitration system for resolving issues that typically involve people, right? Just the fact that you can log in somewhere and sign, and then maybe if the, let's say in insurance claims, if the customer is not happy, right, they would create a dispute, and if it's resolved by a second layer, right, of participants that we would actually pay, that may have identity attached to their decision. And if the claimant is still not happy, we could send it to a real court, for example, like a third-degree resolution. If the court says pay, then we have to pay. So these kind of applications that that are just a subset of business processes that naturally require decentralized participants and independence of those participants. Like in dispute resolution, you have a panel of people, like they have to be signatories, right? So that I think would bring the usage, because it solves a problem in a way that is compatible with decentralized nature of such issues.
Yeah, I think for the first point, which is about interaction with the like traditional finance world and everything, we have this Nest proposal for a grant, which is exactly that. And I think there are a couple of applications. So I really hope. Well, yeah, actually, one of them got merged. So there's someone working on that for Delaware, I think. And I hope like there are more people working on this for multiple jurisdictions. And for the second point, which is about arbitration, I completely agree. When you have this kind of cases that are fully like pseudonymous and on a blockchain and with DAOs, you need some dispute resolution. And that's exactly what we're trying to build with the Aragon network. You don't need to resort to a traditional world courts. We can build a decentralized court that is better and faster and cheaper. So that's what we're trying to do. Like, I completely agree.
Wow, big round of applause for Luis. That was amazing.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe and give us a rating or comment if you enjoyed this content. This episode was brought to you by Santa and the unicorns at giveth.io. Remember, this podcast is made possible by the donations we receive from listeners like you. If you'd like to help support the podcast, you can do so by donating Ether at dattpodcast.com. That's DATT podcast.com. Please check the show notes for more information. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep decentralizing all the things.